right, so today we want to talk about this thing that you hear about all the time. People saying, I want to build generational wealth and leave a legacy. Those are popular, what I call buzzwords that you see when people set goals.
And click the bell
and they sound really good, they brief really well, but most people will never accomplish those goals. Most people will never get to a position where they leave an inheritance for their children's children. Because I think it's in the Proverbs, it says that a good man will leave an inheritance for his children, your grandchildren. And most people won't do that. Now, of course, when you think about it, those are your grandchildren. Those are children that are a part of your family tree. You are the grandfather. So surely you would want to leave those children in the best position that you could possibly leave them in. You have that desire. Most people have the desire to do that. So then if you have the desire, those are your grandchildren, and you want to leave something for them as an inheritance, why don't you? Why is it that most people will never leave an inheritance? First, let's define what inheritance is. And I'm not going to try to go and give you a body book definition. Inheritance to me is basically me giving a loved one, my grandchildren, since that's what we're talking about today, me giving them money, property, stocks, bonds, something that is valuable, something that they can take and build wealth on top of. That's what I consider an inheritance. Other people may consider it different things. Why don't we leave or give? Because I don't necessarily want to wait until I die to give anybody anything. I want to give my gift to my grandchildren in life. So the question is, again, why don't we give an inheritance? If it's good, and we know that it's good, why don't we do that? I think it's two parts to it. I think most people look at goals from a futuristic mindset, thinking that the goal is in the future. So when you start thinking it's in the future, you look at the goal in terms of it being a ways off. But what we forget about is that although the goal is not right here, all of the work that is required in order for you to achieve the goal is right here and right now. So the goal really is not futuristic. The goal is right now. And because we don't look at it in that mindset, that time creeps up on us. Before we know it, the child is 15 or 16 years old and we don't have anything saved. So we need to get out of this futuristic mindset when it comes to goal, but I think that's the first part of it. The second part of it is that we don't know how. We don't know how to go out and build wealth and help generations that follow us to build wealth. We don't know how to do that. If we knew how, then surely we would follow a plan to help us to be able to figure that out. Because it's good. We've already defined it as something that is good for us and our loved ones. Okay? But we get lost in not knowing how. And we get comfortable and okay with just talking about building generational wealth. Then, let me back up. You also have some people who that's all they want to do. That's their whole purpose is just to talk about it. Just to tell somebody about building generational wealth. Some people just live to provide information. If that's what you want to do, that's great. I just like the idea of not only talking about it, but also doing it. I think it's so genuine when you are doing what it is that you're talking about. So I want to always be doing the things that I'm talking about. When I come to you and talk to you about something on YouTube, it's because I'm doing it, not because I am just suggesting it to you based off of what somebody told me. You see, most of us have this idea that we are just going to somehow, when your grandchildren get 18 or 21 years old, you're just going to hand them, say, a check for $50,000. Now, I'm just using that as a random number. That might not be your number. That might not be what you want to give your grandchildren. That's just a random number. So let's just say 50,000. You think when they get 18 or 21, you'll just hand them a check for that amount. But the question is, where is it going to come from? Where are you going to get $50,000 to just hand your grandchildren all at one time? Wouldn't it be a whole lot easier to build that money over time? And then not only does it have to be just your money building, you can take advantage of compound interest. Wouldn't it be a lot easier to do it that way than to wait until the child gets 18 or 21 and hope that you can hand them a check? Because the reality of being able to hand them a check at $50,000, $20,000 is probably not going to happen. Because how are you going to get 20 to 50,000 to hand over to them? Are you going to go and borrow it? Probably not. I'm not talking about borrowed funds. I'm talking about money that you have built for your grandchildren over time. Okay? Because it's much easier to save $100 here or there than it is to just give somebody $20,000 to $50,000 at one time. And if you don't save $100 here and there, what makes you think that you're going to give $20,000 to $50,000 away at one time? Probably not very likely. So, because we don't know how, we get lost in that and we just talk about it. But there's a real way to build wealth, a real way to do it. And most of us, if we understood it, if we took the time out to say, hey, just let me try and understand what's going on here, you'll probably find out that it's relatively simple and easy to understand, and you would probably open your account right away. So let me tell you what I'm talking about. A simple and easy way for regular people, everyday people, just like you and I, to build wealth, build generational wealth. Because what generational wealth is to me is simply passing down wealth to generations that follow me. In this case, my grandchildren. Passing down wealth to help them to start to establish a foundation to build wealth on. Okay? So that lets me know I cannot just leave them money or assets. Because if I just leave them money and assets without anything to put in here, then they'll lose the money and the assets. So it's bigger than just money. It's bigger than just opening an account. It's also teaching, helping them to understand how to use money, how to navigate this world and use money so that it's in their best interest and it does not work against them. Because money works against a lot of people, okay? So we want to give them, or at least I want to, I should say, I want to give my grandchildren, and I will give them money, stocks, and I want to give them an education, an understanding of the world of money so that they understand now that I have something here, I don't want to go out and squander what granddad has left me. I want to go ahead and take this and build and keep building on top of this foundation. That's what, to me, generational wealth is about. You see, I'm not trying to make my grandchildren wealthy. That's not what I'm trying to do. I am trying to leave them an inheritance. I want to leave them something so that they can continue to build their foundation or build their wealth on the foundation that I've established for them. You see, because isn't it a whole lot easier to navigate this world, to live in this world, to enjoy this world if we have money? Isn't it a whole lot easier to be able to help other people if we have an understanding of money? Yes. So I want to establish that with them. I want to establish an understanding, and I want to give them something so that they can start to build their foundation, or to build on top of the foundation that I've left them. Now, I want them to be able to look back and say, that it is with Granddad that it all started. He started this foundation for us to build on, and this is where we've taken it. That's what I consider leaving a legacy. How do you establish those accounts? I'm going to cover that here right now. Now, what I have for my grandchildren is called a UTMA account. UTMA. And that's a Uniform Transfers to Minors Act. Okay? UTMA. And it allows an adult to transfer assets to a minor by opening a custodial account. This type of account is managed by an adult, me, the custodian, who holds on to the assets until the minor reaches a certain age, either 18 or 21. Okay? So I opened a UTMA account for each of my grandchildren, and I can invest money into that account right now. I can buy stocks, I can buy bonds, I can buy real estate in that account, but I am sticking to buying ETFs. I'm buying ETFs because I start off with a small amount of money, about $200. And I start buying ETFs, and every time I get money that I want to put into that account, I put it into that ETF. Very simple. It's just one ETF. I don't have to try to go out and get 100 of them or 10 of them or 5 of them. I'm only doing one. And I selected a small cap ETF. I selected a small cap ETF called VBR. That's an ETF. Over the last 10 years, that ETF has performed really well. It has earned about 13.29%. So although it's a small cap and small caps usually offer more volatility, still 13.29% over the last 10 years, I'm willing to accept the volatility for that type of return. Now, some of you may want to look at something that does not offer as much volatility, usually, or at least in theory it shouldn't, and that's something like the S&P 500. You can get the S&P 500. Those are bigger companies. When we're talking small cap ETF, those are smaller companies. So the bigger companies usually don't have as much volatility, so maybe you want to invest in something like the S&P 500. I like the smaller companies because it gives, me more of a chance to earn more money. I think as a young person, my grandchildren having 18 to 21 years before they're going to get that money, there's plenty of time for that money to recover if losses occur. And we definitely expect that there'll be some years where we have some losses, but we also think that there are going to be years where it does really well. So that's why I like using the small cap instead of using something like the S&P 500 for my grandchildren. By the time they get 21, I should have been installing that education, helping them to understand why Granddad is doing what he's doing. Because the last thing I want to do is just give it to them and they go out and squander it. I want to see them take this gift that I'm going to give to them and build on top of it. Okay? But my job is to provide it. So I open up this UTMA account, it's called. Okay? Just investing however much you want. You can put in as little as however much an ETF would cost you. And it's like buying a stock. So you're buying it per share. That's why mine was a little less than $200, the ETF that I bought. Here are some key takeaways from the UTMA. A minor can hold assets through a UTMA account. Now, when I'm saying UTMA account, I'm just saying a UTMA brokerage account. It's just a regular brokerage account. You will hold it in your and the child's name, and it'll stay that way until the child gets 18 or 21, and then you'll transfer the assets over to the child at that time. Think about that. You're saving money over time, and you're earning interest, compounding interest over time. That is a whole lot different, a whole different ball game than putting your money into a account making 0.025% on your money. That's not going to get you very far at all. Now, this is not the same as a 529 college plan, because those funds, if I'm not mistaken, have to be used for college. These funds don't have to be used for college. I want my grandchildren to have the choice of using the funds, whether they use it for education or whether they do use it for something else. I don't want to restrict them just to college, because they may decide not to go to college. Okay? So that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. That's what we mean when we say building generational wealth, helping to establish a foundation for the generations that follow you to be able to build wealth based off of already having inherited assets and having an education to help them build or multiply those assets, I should say. So until the next time, I wish you the very best in your life and business. See you at the top, because the bottom is much too crowded.